Okay, the DNA is a code.
Yes.
Each codon is got a certain frequency. In order for an ancestor to incarnate into a descendant, they have to be a close enough DNA alignment for the energy to be broadcast like a radio signal, but to a different radio.
Okay.
Right. When you look at the fetal development, the point where the zygote sparks, it's a spark. That's at the point the soul is attaching to the zygote. It's in the first trimester. The mother can telepathically talk to the child if she remember her yoni magic. This is why they want to send you to Western trained OBGYNs and gynecologists so that they can tell you the limited information they want you to know about the capabilities of the uterus in the development of the child. The mother is always communicating with the child from inception. This is why the umbilical cord is there. It's an information highway. Right? So the mother always was talking to the child from the time he became a parasite on her uterus wall. They've been talking. That's because she's not here in physical form. And those of us who lost our mother know we can still hear her talking to us. Because she's teletyped frequency of love that can't go away. Parthogenic birth of a monoparent child. You're not describing the conception with two different templates coming together. You're describing the fundamental root to parthenogenesis, where the codons is activated solely by the mother. In this case, that's the science you drop. It's a different science from what I was telling them earlier. The science that deals with the two-part parentage, right? We're talking about the separation of alleles on the chromosomes in order to form whole body chromosomes, because now you're drawing from two sides of the family. And you can see the spark when this event takes place in the first trimester. But it's a different science. And a lot of the ancient science when they start talking about before the Diluvian history, what we was going before they started talking about parthenogenesis, the science is more detailed and intricate for the monoparent birthing. And this is the segue for Brother Anil Bey, because the Moorish navigators have records of the Americas that predate Columbus.
Right.
It's the gateway. It's the opening up of the door for a particular frequency of spirit to incarnate. When man is, as they say in the Moorish science, if we use the Moorish science today, man is truth and falsehood strangely mixed.
Correct.
What is the truth and what is the falsehood? The eternal spirit is the everlasting truth in man. The physical form is the temporary vessel which gives the man the false identity called the ego of self. You remember the other day we was talking and I was telling you how the blues singer pick up the frequency of that woman?
Right.
When he did her wrong. This is what you're talking about.
Okay. All right.
Right? He can hear it, but he don't know where it's coming from. He think it's a song playing in his head.
Shit. Damn.
And it's a combination of frequencies emitted by her collective chakra resonance carried on the sound wave at the subconscious level. You got to remember, just like we can see only 0.5% of the light spectrum, we can only hear slightly more of the sound spectrum. They got subliminal sound has been being used against us in media and entertainment for the last 50 years. Right? Because they know that these things, we can assimilate this as data. And go back to the early days of computer program. GIGO, what's that? Garbage in, garbage out. Right? So if they keep overwhelming your senses with misinformation and false paradigms, when it comes time to upload some serious information, where you gonna put it? You talking about you full of the Holy Ghost when you full of commentary. You can cite all of the commentary of the Moody Bible, the Orthodox Christian Bible with the footnotes, and you quote them so good, people think they came from you all the time. You ain't doing nothing but quoting somebody else's opinion of an opinion about a story that may not even be true. Look, my man told us we are instruments. We electromagnetic beings. In the physical form, we are accumulated DNA codons. When you break DNA down to its crystalline amino acid form, you see that you have something that breaks up light rays, a prism. Yeah. And the light rays have to be separated in order for each ray to be used according to its wavelength and frequency. That part. So as an electromagnetic being, we download what we call consciousness into the physical world, and then we get absorbed with the physical world and forget where we came from. Right? So when Brother Rich was saying about the baby and consciousness coming into the baby and the remembrance of the womb, if it wasn't for a lot of us being shocked with the optic nerve with that bright ass light, a lot more of us would remember being in the womb.
Right.
That's not an accident. That's deliberate.
Uh-oh.
You hear guys that was locked up.
Going? Huh?
The old heads I was locked up with, they say, if you feel the tension cutting thick enough to cut with a knife, don't go to the yard.
Where's ball?
Go to the yard.
Yes. Yes.
I thought that was just a penitentiary fairy tale. Nah. I woke up one day and I walked up to the doors getting ready to go outside, and I was like, oh bullshit. I'm going back to bed. I went back to bed, and look, there was an all-out war out on the yard while I was going back to bed. Yeah. The best way to understand what we're talking about hearing that music is to read how Beethoven said he would hear the entire symphony play, and then he would write the chords. Right? And the difference in the music that produced jazz in the musical notes of the Western piano player is orchestra versus ragtime. Scott Joplin changed to fill in the blanks, and it became a pariah the same as hip hop. Right? But the addition to see the colors, to read the colors of the spectrum, every note has a color associated with it.
Fact.
Right? They got a number associated with it.
Yes.
Right? And then the series of numbers produce a pitch and a frequency that we interpret as what's called harmony, melody. Right? And then if the music is sweet, we say that's feel-good music.
Right.
But when my mom and them hear our music, they say that's that bad house music. Because the frequency they was on has changed with the children that they gave birth to, because every generation is birthed with a different cause and purpose of being here.
That's a fact.
If you didn't have a cause and a purpose, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
I hear people all the time talking about this kind of people ain't supposed to be here, or that kind. If they wasn't supposed to be here, guess what? They wouldn't even be here.
There you go.
Even the ones that did the most violent, wickedest things to the people that's been here the longest is supposed to be here. This is the chapter of misery. And the misery does something to the God form that the pleasure could never produce. Right? The pre-karma, the build-up for the payout.
Right.
The long suffering, the enduring of the punishment in order to reap the greatest reward. The greatest reward is to get it all.
Right.
get so much that it ain't nothing to give to the ones that took it from us.
Mm.
So now they can't pay us nothing back because they don't have nothing because we took back everything that was ours by the blood and the right.
Oh yeah.
Don't forget about in the early days of music. They had a house band of brothers they called the music fixers. When the other people would make music, they would have to take it to them in order to fix the sound. The sound ain't right. It's something wrong. That's not new to us as a people. That's ancient. You know the women who wear all of the white stuff and they go down the riverbank?
Yes.
That's ancient. That go all the way back to early Atlantean days. And the science to it is the UV rays of the sun is amplified by the element water. The women in the white becomes the magnet with the uterus to the energy. The men have to ride on the mitochondrial in order to pick up the signals that's coming in. The water is an amplifier. It is a physical representation of spirit. That's why they say that water is God. If you could see spirit, the closest physical thing that you could use to describe what you're looking at would be water. As far as living in water, you got to remember every body of water around the planet is simultaneously evaporating and putting water particles up in the air. So of course we in water. We walking around in water. We breathe in water. We just breathing it less than the fish.
Indeed.
Instructions.
Every tattoo is a biological sigil. If you don't know why you're getting a tattoo, you don't know what you're charging up to put on your body. Because when you go through that pain and that blood and ink ritual, you are inscribing something. If you don't have a meaning, you better give it one.
How about that?
Because if you give it a meaning, you can control the energy that you use it to drive you and to utilize.
Indeed.
The brother earlier mentioned the dowsing. The cymatics of dowsing. And the reason the scientists can't acknowledge the accuracy of it is because they would have to then acknowledge the accuracy of tarot reading. They would
absolutely
have to acknowledge the accuracy of the I Ching. They would have to acknowledge the accuracy of the runes because the subconscious is the communicating vessel that's talking to us through these mediums. These are just tools. A carpenter need a hammer to drive a nail.
Right.
And sometimes a psychic uses the tool to develop the sense so that they don't need the tools no more. Look, Brother Rich.
Yeah.
45-degree angle. Shaped like an L, ain't it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, if you got a hallway with a 45-degree angle at the turn, and you run full speed, and right when you get to the end, you try to make that turn, what you think gonna happen?
Pop into that shit. Pop.
Okay, now, the fundamentals of programmable water, that's running into a wall, that's a generated trauma to the water.
Ooh, talk to me, Rod.
Right? So now the water that went through so many left turns going through these 45-degree angles, it accumulated a lot of trauma.
Damn, we drinking trauma water? What the fuck?
Hey, the bottled water in the store is not no better. Everybody that went through there, the water that downloaded everybody's attitude.
Oh, shit.
Based on the observer effect and the programmable nature of water, the lady who just caught her husband cheating 2 hours before she came to the shopping mall, her energy is in that water when she was glaring at it, thinking about him. It's in that water.
Shit.
Damn.
Right? The little runaway girl who ran in there because she was hot, she needed some air, and she looked at that water and she mad at her family. That's in that water. Between still water and stagnant water, too.
Yes. Yes.
A lake is still water.
Right. Let's say stagnant. Right. That's right.
Stagnant water will spoil like bad food in the refrigerator. The old cowboys used to say, if my horse don't drink out that water hole, you won't catch me sipping nowhere near it.
That's what they said, right?
Yeah. That's how look, everywhere was a body of water before the settlers came was drinkable. Now, good luck to find the drinkable source of water in its natural habitat.
And think
You end
about
up with all
that.
kind of stuff. Tell my
What-
mama, but she used to warn me about people doing witchcraft. I said, Mama, I ain't worried about the one that got the time to do the ritual because they're not going to be thinking about me. I'm worried about the one that don't know they casting a spell when they wish I'd die for no reason. Had a cultural attraction to the corner anyway.
And a corner, if you know anything about Papa Legba, you already know what a corner is.
Yeah, we got a cultural connection to corners anyway. When we coming into manhood and we want to test our grit, so when we go to the crossroads as boys becoming men, because if you pay attention to when we go hang out on the corner,
Yeah.
boys are becoming men.
Yes.
You want to test your grit, you go stand with Papa Leg because he gonna put you to the test.
It's coming.
Man, oh man.
It's coming.
You go deal with Baron Samadhi. He gonna put you to the test.
On that corner.
Yeah.
The corner is where you communicate with both sides. Every time they create a corner, they create a gateway that can download information from the spirit realm to the physical realm. Where do all accidents happen at? The 90% of accidents happen at the corner. They very rarely happen in open road.
I don't park on the corner. When I was in, I don't park.
You get your car hit.
Yeah.
Look,
A lot.
in major cities, different people got different cultural reasons to stay off the corner. Right? And we come up with those reasons, like Brother Rich said, I don't park on the corner. Cats in Chicago said, man, we don't hang out on the corner. Popo would come harassing you on the corner. Right? And this is all over the country now. The corner has become the hot spot for law enforcement to harass the boys trying to become men. They going to face Papa Legba themselves. They ain't waiting on mom and daddy to remind them who Legba is, because he gonna show up in some form or another. You just ain't gonna know it's him. And if you come with the wrong energy, he can send you home with your tail between your legs if you make it home.
That's right.
You mentioned Cat Williams in that interview. Do you remember his necklace?
Yes.
Woke folk.
Four corners to the center. Listen, four corners to the center. Square in the circle. So it's an old question. How do you get the circle out the square or the square out the circle? Right? He was showing the answer to the question in his jewelry.
Right.
All four corners converged on pi. That's the symbol of the man that we call Ta, standing on his post, holding his scepter. Right? So Ta is the fashioner. And the fashioner is the one that makes the man. He forms the man from the raw element. But this is the father side of masonry, not the mother side. Because the mother side is abstract. It's the character that can't be put in a box that the mother cultivate the wisdom in the child. The father teach the son to bump straight, and the mother teach him to stand up straight on four corners. So no matter whether he's dealing with Legba or the return of the Ogun, he gonna always hold his position right there under the light post. And they made a game called Pop Goes the Weasel to express that.
What a beautiful.
They don't know when one of the elders is gonna pop up in us if they don't know how to read the stars.
Damn,
this was the purpose of being good navigators. Because when you know where the stars align over what city and what energy frequency coming in, you can track the chiefs now. Just don't let them know the science. Right?
You get it, right?
So we reconstructing a new future right now in real time. And that's why I told Brother Rich, I said, we come in teams. And everybody do their part according to their skill set that they developed over their lifetime. When certain ones of us move, it makes a whole group of us move all over the planet.
Yeah.
We concerned with the struggle we face with over here, but we don't realize that we also affecting the outcome of everybody else's struggle around the planet. Right? It's all back to the alchemy. It's back to the metaphysics, the quantum physics, and it's back to the frequency and the vibration that we're trying to raise into people's psychology and psychiatry. The mental state is the subjugating battlefield of the oppressive regime through miseducation and misinformation. So now you got all of these brothers coming out now. We ain't got no degrees. I ain't got no PhD.
Right.
Right? I don't regurgitate scholastic data.
Right.
I tell you what the spirit told me, and then I go get you a reference to show you what it looked like in the physical world. But to people, it make it look like I'm smart. So I just smile and act like I'm smart. But I'm just reading the frequency and the energy that I learned how to translate by trying to build myself into the best me. Them just side effects of the skills developed in the pursuit of the better self. Right? And we learn how to read the water, the air, the trees, the animals talk to us. It just don't sound like people want it to sound.
That's right.
Hey,
they want the animal to talk to you in English. He don't talk in English. He talk in frequency. This will make people believe if they don't watch you do it, they'll think that you use some kind of modern chemicals to produce with the plants that this does.
Correct.
Exactly.
Now, your watermelon to be 3 times sweeter, but it might be 4 times bigger.
Right.
First off, Brother Rich, you describe in your book of life and how you process your life.
Okay.
When you run into them obstacles like that, if you neglect something that you know you're supposed to do, you're going to create a condition that's going to force you to go back to where you was until you pass the test.
Absolutely.
You lay these out in your book of life so that you can remember what you're working on while you here, one step at a time.
Right.
You can't skip steps because every time you skip a step, you get sent back to repeat the step. That's your book of life. As far as the inanimate objects, they only going to follow the energy that you carry with you. They not animate. They don't have what we call soul essence, but they still have the spirit of the object. You probably, the two brothers here probably, I don't know if you old enough, Brother Rich, but all of us had an uncle, grandfather, or elder that called their car by a female name and say, sometimes you just got to talk to her.
I've heard
you go out there, try to start the car, it won't start, and he come out there, he say, yo, you don't know how to get old Betsy started, do you? And he say, sometimes she needs a little love. He go grab his polishing rag, and he talking sweet to the car, and polishing the car up. He get in there, and half turn start on the first try. A comparative analysis. The same way you describe being in that car, moving at 90 miles an hour while you sitting still, your higher self is in your body while you walk into the store saying, woo, I'm walking to the store at 2 miles an hour and I'm sitting still.
Right?
Right? Cycles within cycles, relays, comparative events. The strongest ones gonna stay at the bottom the longest because they can take it better than the rest. Until it come a time when spirit calls the strongest ones at the bottom to flip the pyramid and stand on top. This is the whole philosophy of the rejected stone that the builders rejected, becoming the chief cornerstone. He went from being a cornerstone at the setting of the foundation to being the capstone over the arch. That's the royal arc degree, right? That's at the crown chakra. So when we go through these phases, we can't lose track of the struggle is there because we can take it more than other people. So we took on the struggle to build up the pre-karma in order to cleanse other people's wicked ways from the planet. It's a catharsis of the ones that was on top. They have to burn that energy off in order for them to be refined into something better than they was when they was created.
You feel
It's
me?
visible for the ones who can see the signs, but the visibility is cloaked with the artificial narrative being scripted and spoon-fed to us as if we some children that don't know what we looking at. They watching the movie. I don't want to watch the movie. I want to watch the director and the writer. What y'all putting together, right? So when I'm telling y'all what the director and the writer doing, y'all think I'm talking about the movie. I can give less than a damn about the movie. Right. It might be a good movie. I might not have a problem with the movie itself. I just got a problem with the writer and the narrative he was pushing and the director for pushing you in a direction that the writer wanted you to go. These ultraviolet rays coming in from the sun is going to keep coming in until all of this mental fog is lifted from the people. They waking up. The reason why, okay, E is energy. Yeah. It's the equation is equal to matter, and C represents the speed of light squared means times 2. Right? That was the reason why that formula was so urgent is because it opened a pathway for what's known as the Manhattan Project. And the science from that is where Lloyd Quartermain and his physicist team went in when they couldn't figure out how to turn Einstein's formula into a method to split the atom. And then they designed the atomic bomb based on that science. That's what make him discovering the reversed energy. If it's mass moving at the speed of light squared, then if you can interrupt the nucleus, then it'll set off what's called a chain reaction, which they call nuclear fission, right? And this in turn will cause what's known as the radioactive fallout, which is a side effect of the splitting of the atom. This is the only reason why it's the most popular formula, because it was the foundational formula for splitting the atom. But his unified field theory was a little bit different. That's what gave rise to the understanding of quantum entanglement.
Yes.
That all things being connected.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Which metaphysically is sound, and that's not Einstein's original work. The unified field theory can be traced back to Kemet, back to ancient America, back to ancient Tibet. Right. So he just put it into modern science to be utilized. Right. To understand it. He also gave him the observer effect. Right. So his works, he did a lot of good scientific work, but scientifically, it might sound arrogant to say this, but Einstein was a toddler compared to our ancestors.
Absolutely.
Linear logic only, no abstract reason, no right brain involvement in the translation of the data. Go back to the beginning of the so-called discovery of gravity. Newton sitting under a tree, apple fall out, bump him into his head. And he said, ouch, what made this apple hit me upside my head? So whatever the cause was, he named it gravity, right? And the descriptive analysis was that the larger object's pull draws the smaller object to it, right? This is the standard model for gravity. But it don't explain why the moon don't crash into the earth, right? The moon should be crashed into the earth based on position, unless there's something else keeping the moon from crashing into the earth, because the pull of the earth is like 10 times stronger than the pull of the moon. The moon's supposed to surrender its orbit to the superior body according to the laws of gravity, but it doesn't.
Good point.
Right. So there's something else at play. The narrative that you was just reading describes the field, what we would call it an electromagnetic field. Yes. It's the magnets to draw and the pull. And they come together, they create a field. And this is how cymatics can show you what sound look like in the three-dimensional form without you being able to see the sound with your naked eye. But you can see the side effect of the sound in the cymatic design that tells you from the shape structure of what you designed, what the frequency, pitch, tone, and vibration was of the sound used to make it. Right? So when we go to Michael Talbot's The Holographic Universe, right, you need a fixed position object and a moving object to produce the hologram. All parts of the hologram is equivalent to the whole of the hologram. You can see all parts in the microcosmic piece of the hologram, right? But they don't always have to look the same, right? So this is how we become holographic projectors of the God force in human form. That's the truth, but the human form is the falsehood, right? So when we realize we're not the body, then the mind can leave the body sitting where it's at and go do its own business. They call it astral projection, lucid dreaming, and it's just a natural capability of spirit beings to be able to leave the physical vessel and traverse higher realms of consciousness, what they call higher dimensions. The electromagnetic field has in it a point where if you're closer to one side of the magnet, you will go to that one. But if you're closer to the other, you'll go to that one, right? That's called magnetism. This is what the guy you was just reading is describing, the effect of magnetism on the object that comes between the field projected from the push and the pull of the electricity and the magnetism, or the radiance and the attractive properties of the mother line, father line. Right. Remember, our ancestors always use person, places, or things to teach complex sciences in a simplified form. And we begin to worship those names of those nouns as gods, but they just principles in quantum physics to be able to be used to explain to people who doesn't have a scientific background how the energies is moving. When we talk about Big Mama energy, everybody been to Big Mama house. They all know what we're talking about. But if we put it into a scientific form, now we talking dark matter. We talking orgone energy. We talking prime ether. And the science keep changing the name to try to confuse the children who the name belonged to in the first place. When we called it the primordial noon, we knew what we was talking about, but now they think that the primordial noon is some being walking around calling himself Noon. Mork from Ork. It's not going to happen. It's a scientific formula using person, place, or things in order to explain the concept of the mother energy of prime creator, the father energy, the active principle of creation, right? The mother and the father line. A side effect of the father is he gonna have a son in his image after his likeness, procreation, right? We still telling biology, quantum physics, metaphysics, all in the form of the holy drama, the great story. But it's playing out in the human reality as our day-to-day life, but all it is a reenactment of the creation story being played out in the human arena. And this is why every time we get to the close of the age, a whole bunch of us wake up at one time and start teaching. Just get to work, roll your sleeves up. We got a new reality to create. We got to prepare for the next 24,000 years by laying the foundation of the first 7 generations of this age.
There you go.
Just what we doing.
Yes.
I just had a luxury of having multiple past life memories so I could come back and say, hey, I remember doing this before. My phone didn't have English letters on it, but they sure as hell had hieroglyphics on it, or they had cuneiform on it, or Sanskrit on it, depending on which time frame. But we do it all the time. Plummet to the depths in order to rise to the heights. If you don't know what it's like to be rock bottom, you will never be able to appreciate being on top.
Man, oh man.
And that's the chapter of misery. You got to be miserable to stay at the bottom. And we be weak in a whole lot of stuff, but it's one thing that we obstinate and unmoved. What is that, Mo? His name is misery.
So you
that's a huge compliment.
Was a giant.
Listen, we got to come up and be capable of holding the fort down for what they left us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we needed a Moorish metaphysician, and here he is. C. Freeman Neal, look, C. Freeman Neal came through, did a pigeon drop on us, left us with some high-powered stuff. Now it's up to one of the Moors with the black fez to come behind him.
Stand on his shoulders.
Yes. Because a midget can see further from a giant's shoulders than the giant can see himself.
Come on, brother. That's a fact.
You know? So we standing on the shoulders of some very, very powerful elders that came before us. And we got to acknowledge that as part of acknowledging this whole struggle, the chapter of misery and the breaking free from the chapter. We can't stay in misery. We got to bring it to an end.
Right. Yeah. Right.
They was left in power long enough for us to learn how to run a government. I could run it by myself. And I ain't the only one.
For sure.
Because what they doing over here, calling government, exploiting the people, it has to come to an end. And this is us announcing that it's an end to their reign and their tyranny and their misuse of the people. This got to be known. So when I see somebody standing on the shoulder of a giant, I'm gonna point that out.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
A lot of people think more science is only law.
Right.
It's way more than that.
It's way more than that.
That's
right. So this is why the prophet said, get a good Moorish education, because you're gonna find out some stuff gonna break your heart, and you're gonna find out some things that make you feel like a champ. All of that comes from what's called Shakti.
Shakti.
Right. That's everything, including the holographic projector, is held together by siphoning what we call dark matter or Shakti energy, which is the pure energy of the divine feminine. Right. That's creator energy at its source. The dimensions spiral in from first dimension to multiple dimensions up. Like, let's take a slinky. Stretch the slinky out and look at it from the bottom and watch the spiral.
Right.
Now, if you take two of them and you pinch them together, you have an infinity loop. On the bottom of it, you have one reality, and on the top of it, you have what's called the upside down. The only way to escape the infinity loop is you have to jump the fourth dimension into the fifth. That's why nobody never talks about the fourth dimensional ascension. We already in the fourth and the third simultaneously because of the infinity loop. Right. Years ago, the Anunnaki opened a portal between the third and the fourth dimension, and then they ignited a nuclear type of explosion that collapsed the fourth into the third. So now we need sleep. We need to be able to live in two dimensions simultaneously, and nature has a way of like adjusting to whatever you throw at it. So when we go to sleep, our dreams is fourth dimensional mental matrix. When we are awake, we in three-dimensional fixed position reality of the 3D matrix. The three-dimensional matrix has a damper on it. It's like putting a silencer on a gun, and that's the holographic projector system set up by the Dark Knight satellite and the moon. And that's what keep us thinking that this is more real than higher dimensions, which has been here longer. That's why they never collide. They're not even supposed to be. Okay, you got the dark light satellite going with a north-south polar orbit, whereas the moon goes in the east-west equatorial orbit, right? But they on the same trajectory lines, but they never collide. That doesn't make sense unless it's controlled, because they move at different speeds, but they never collide. Well, we didn't need sleep for one. We didn't perceive the concept of time. The concept of time is it's a delay in your ability to manifest your creative potential. Whereas you didn't have a delay before. It was like everybody was fighting these conjure wars all the time. It was like, we don't talk about the conjure wars. The people had all these mystic powers, and they would liberally use them. But most of the people were what we call benevolent, good-hearted, kind people, and they would normally, you didn't have a conflict that required nefarious violence. What we would do is we were more into the healing arts, the learning. Like, this was University Earth before it became what it is now, the prison planet. It became the prison planet because one of the Anunnaki didn't like the feminine nature of the matriarchs that ran the planet and the feminine nature of the planet, and wanted to, his name was Enlil. Now, caveat, which means buyer beware. The caveat is this: I read this stuff as energy, but it's told in story format, like a conceptual physics story, so that people can more readily grasp these concepts. When you tell them in story form, it makes it easier for them to understand what you're talking about than if you was to put it in a mathematical formula. So even when I talk about the mothership, I can only read it as an energy till I see it. Anything that you don't see, you have to read it as an energy signature. And the description of the thing tells you the nature or the energy expression that's being expressed. The mother plane is just the when you read it as an energy, it's all things coming forth from the divine feminine as the great mother. But when you read it as an actual construct, it becomes a physical object, right? And if you haven't seen it, you got a miscalculation taking place because you can't physically see the object. You have to read it as an energy. Anything that somebody tell you that you can't physically see, the description tells you the nature of the energy that's being used. So you have to read it as the energy first before you apply it to the 3D reality, because the 3D reality is primarily elusive in its understanding of spiritual things, because you have to translate it like a foreign language into the common language. If you're in China, you got to translate it into Chinese. If you're in America, you got to translate it into American English. If you're in London, you have to be able to translate it into the Queen's English. So all these different perceptions, you still have to be able to reduce them to a common descriptive analysis that the average person can digest and utilize the information to its greatest advantage. So always read it as an energy first until you see it. And then think about this. Based on your description you just gave, that would mean that the all-knowing divine mother doesn't know what she's creating. She wouldn't be able to know in advance. Okay. Therefore, she would have no control over the creation itself, because it's an unknown variable. It's X marks the spot, or the Y in algebra. Right? So that's not consistent with the understanding of the nature of creation. The creator understands the creation, whether it's assuming the form of me or you. right? We developed egos. Our egos have to be purified, and a purified ego is just this. Everybody in the world told you how they perceive you. That's your ego. Everything they told you that you believe about yourself is your ego. The purification process is you go through the ego, and those things that don't truly apply to you, you discard them from your ego self until higher consciousness can absorb the lower consciousness and they become one. These egos, like Tahuti. Tahuti was the manifestation of me as an ego. Now, the ego can be regenerated if the genetic frequency aligns with the timing. The genetic frequency is fed through the DNA from the mitochondrial to tell it how to vibrate. That's all source energy. The mitochondrial is the step-down capacitor because the energy that it takes to run us is the same as a neutron star. But you can't put a neutron star in the human body without spontaneous combustion unless you have a step-down capacitor, or what we call on a mini bike is called a governor, to limit the amount of speed you can put behind this machine or the amount of energy it can push out. So the energy that's coming from the mitochondrial activates certain codons on the DNA. They work hand in hand with the Shu and Tefnet resonance and the solar rays from the sun in order for us to manifest ourselves. And the egos that we become, if they become what we call a noteworthy creation, is able to be duplicated in the future. That's what we call the reincarnation cycles. All it is your ego. They tell you that it's a soul trap, don't go into the light, all that bullshit, right? Everything that you're doing is part of your ego self seeking to purify its consciousness so that it can facilitate the higher consciousness of the higher self. We all got a personal tutor, but we don't know how to access it. The personal tutor, we call it our holy guardian angel. The holy guardian angel was written about by Aleister Crowley, but the concept goes back to ancient Kemet, and he got it, as according to him, from the goddess Iwas, which was the spirit of the great tree of the earth, which was also chopped down, by the way. It was in Arizona, where we see as the Devil's Hill, or what do they call it? The Devil's Tower. That's one of the largest trees that we had. Some of the trees used to touch the atmosphere, and that's one of them right there. But there's more of them around the world. And this is why they had the tree in Avatar movie named Iwas. It's the same embodiment. So we used to be able to upload our consciousness into the tree. And when we go to the consciousness in the new lifetime, it tunes the DNA in to the frequency you are, and then it downloads your consciousness back to you so you know everything you ever knew. They called that the tree of eternal knowledge. And that's the one that they told Adam and Eve in the garden not to eat, even though it's a mythical story. The story was told to hold certain keys to the understanding of accessing the tree of knowledge and the tree of eternal life, which is the Holy Sephirah. We eternal beings, but we live in infinite space based on a time construct. The purpose of the delay in the manifestation was people was manifesting stuff and then they would immediately regret it. So the weeding out the regret is done by putting a delay. And then if you don't do the maintenance to bring it about, you can't manifest it. It won't produce itself because you got to do certain maintenance along the way. In other words, you got to write your destiny and then walk the path to lead you to that. And most people are inherently being taught through the system to be lazy when it comes to manifesting their dreams in order to support the dreams of the system that don't care about us.
Right.
3D will make the lesser evolved beings have a delay still. They will be parsed. The 3-dimensional lessons, what we learn from the 3rd dimension, it will make the lesser evolved beings have a harder time to manifest without doing the work. Then the higher evolved beings was doing the work even in the 3D of merging a higher consciousness with the ego self. The women are waking up on the earth to their true power. The priestesses of Oshun are returning with the sweet waters. When this happened, they individually raise their frequency, and when they come in contact in a group, they raise the group frequency, and it causes that effect on the earth. It wakes Earth up. Mother Earth wake up to shake off the parasites. She changes the frequency, and whole species are annihilated and new species emerged. We're going to be seeing new animals that we never knew existed. And then we're going to see animals disappear that's been here for the longest. One of the key catalysts, if you go back, I did a public service announcement about the goddess glow up, where there's a sister, Idea Barber, was leading a healing group in Florida. And that was instrumental in flipping the grid, because the women had to go to the healing circle, and the more of the priestesses that got healed, the more they collectively together, 100 monkey effect, or what we call critical mass, changes the frequency of the planet. And her program was in the process on Father's Day. So it's not a coincidence. All these things are already written in prophecy. They're written in historical records, and it's not the first time it's happened. We go through cycles on Earth. Right now, we leave in a lunar cycle, going into a solar cycle. The lunar cycle was when we was clouded with the night vision, not understanding our dreams, which make us not really understand our thoughts. The sun cycle comes in, it changes the vibrational frequency, and it elevates the frequency of the individuals. And the earth is controlled by the mitochondrial force. Mitochondrial can be found in a free radical form in the soil, but you can't find DNA in the free radical form in the soil. The DNA is made up of the 21 complex amino acids, and these are in crystalline form. In other words, they microprocessing computers, self-replicating using phalanx technology. And that's why the DNA replication takes place, to exchange the data from the different cells so they all on the same page.
Right.
Well, you can, but the 4th dimensional is more like the realm of the dream. And the astral plane is like a training simulator that we go to learn how to control our spiritual self, our higher self. We learn how to gain control of the faculties, or what we call spiritual senses, using the astral plane as like a mirror universe to train in, so that we don't spill over into the 3D with all these new creations that we fabricated in our mind. So you needed a controlled location. What we call it in ancient Kemet, they call it the halls of Amenti, which is the great university of the soul. He just talks about the halls of Amenti being the place of higher evolved souls. He touched on it several times in the text, and he says that he is the keeper of the information in the halls, in the sacred halls. He's basically the librarian. No, the NBA would be what we call the 5th dimension. The developmental would be the third dimension. And the European League would be the astral plane. If you're using basketball as the analogy.
As an analogy, right.
Right. So it's a whole different league, but you can go get your skills sharp enough to come back and get in the NBA.
Right.
Developmental, you can get to the NBA.
Right.
Right. But if you go to Europe, that means that you already NBA ready. You just not. It's too many players in the NBA for you to make it. You've been bumped out.
Oh shit.
So you go over there and you can still make a living doing what you love. When you go into the astral realm, you can still develop your spiritual senses to a higher degree than you could trying to do it in a three-dimensional reality. The problem is with most of us is we don't want to follow the steps because we think that somebody giving us rules. Well, there's rules to govern the processes. And they all want to take process out of development, and you can't do that. Because that's why we in the time matrix. So to stop people from creating the strangest creatures, figments of their imagination becoming real, you need the manifestation delay of the third dimension until they get control of the self. And don't nobody want to have self-control. They want to control everybody else instead.
Right. Damn. So we would need for it to get back to instant manifestation, humanity will need ultimate self-discipline, huh?
Yep.
Saturn,
and that's where you're gonna lose most of the people.
Yeah.
Because everybody is willing to discipline somebody else, but very few are willing to do the self-discipline.
Right. Yes.
You don't want to tell yourself what to do, but you want to tell somebody else what to do.
Right. No, indeed. That's self-discipline. And Saturn governs self-discipline. Isn't that associated with Saturn?
Saturn is the great judge. Saturn is when you don't want to do your work, the energy of Saturn, which actually is its moon Lilith. And this is the compel you to do what you came to Earth to do. And this is the energy that it comes through the Saturnian forces. Okay, it's the understanding is that we won't experience a three-dimensional fixed position reality, which is nothing could be further from the truth. We're still going to experience the same as if we in 3D. But the constructs that govern us is going to change. It's like changing presidents or changing kings or any. So the energy that we'll be ruled by is a higher consciousness energy, because people getting away from just believing some shit because the preacher said it to show me where you got that from. I want to know. I want to see it for myself. This is the fifth dimensional mind matrix operating in 3D, demanding the proof to the statement. Don't just tell me what to do. Tell me where to find where you got it from. Right? So the human was going through a Kali Yuga, which is an amnesia state. And while you're going through this Kali Yuga, prior to it, Tahuti told the people to start keeping a written record. And they started with the writings in stone because the memory was still intact of the planet.
Right.
So the things that's written in stone, where we talk like the hieroglyphics in Kemet in Mexico and China, and then we talk about like the Sumerian tablets, and then you end up with your Vedic texts, your sutras of India, are all ancient texts. And they don't want us to know what that stuff say. But now, because people have to write translations and dictionaries to help us read this stuff, we start to be able to read it for ourselves, reading the writing on the wall, as they say. And the writing on the wall tells the story of the holy drama. Everything we doing Everything we doing in our reality, no matter how simple or how complex it is, it all caters to the fruition of the holy drama, which is the Osirian resurrection story, the return of the Great Father, which comes in as a solar ray, which activates the Great Mother, which in turn comes out as a frequency from the planet, which was a Schumann resonance, which is now a Schumann Tefnut resonance, which is a different vibrational frequency of balance. Well, that's that solar flare.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what the solar flare was. It was the message from the sun, which is the Great Father, to Earth, which is the Great Mother, telling her it's time to wake up. These kids is ready to eat dinner or breakfast or whatever you want to call it. And we need to start doing our parental duties to raise these and protect these children because somebody dropped the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in them frequencies. And the scientists have gauges and meters and all kind of instruments to read these frequencies, and over the years they can almost translate most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what the sun is saying to the earth and tell you the response the earth is having to the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Which ties back to the holy drama, the Osirian resurrection and the return of the Great Father.
Do you practice grounding, Rod, to communicate with the earth? Do you practice grounding?
Yep.
How
grounding grounding is essential because when we don't ground, our energy is going in multiple directions at the same time. When you ground, it realigns those energies to flow synchronistically through the physiology of the being. All we are is manifest earth walking around in a human body. So the earth can tell us, based on where our DNA is, how to realign, how to see our higher consciousness, and how to communicate with our higher self better than the preacher on the pulpit, because he ain't got a clue. Grounding, cleaning your filters, and spiritual baths for the women is highly important.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are the three most important things, especially cleaning your filters is the most underrated thing for health.
How do you do that? And what do you mean by that? Clean your filters.
So your filters is your lymphatic system,
okay.
your liver, your kidneys, and your intestines. This is where the body gets toxins trapped in them if we don't herbally stimulate them to purge those toxins.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why they catch the toxin is to allow the brain and the heart to function normal.
Right.
When them toxins are burdening to the body, it causes a stupor. The brain becomes foggy and the heart becomes hesitant to beat, and you get shortness of breath. And some people experience acute angina, which is a chest pain that's not a heart attack.
Walking.
Well, okay, so the jumping rope to a profuse sweat will clean your pores, and it'll accelerate your lymphatic excretions. But for your liver, you would use like burdock root, dandelion leaf, or you would use milk thistle are the most potent ones. And you have flushes, you have chemicals that flush for the kidneys and chemicals that clean, or I don't like to use the term chemical, but herbs that will clean the intestine. Right. And as you clean them, you'll begin to see clearer. Everything, you'll be able to think, your thoughts will come easier. You'll be able to comprehend faster, and you'll have more mental dexterity, able to take on new concepts in shorter periods of time than you were before.
Mm-hmm.
All that's part of cleaning the filtration system of the body. Right. The body ain't what we think it is. Like, I'm listening to a lot of people that discriminate based on melanin production alone. But melanin production alone is not all that it's going to take to survive on Earth. What's more important than that is your mitochondrial connection to the planet. If Earth say you can stay, I don't give a fuck how light you is, you're going to be here.
Mm-hmm. So that mitochondria is the most important, huh?
It's more important than the melanin. But the crazy thing about melanin is melanin is auto-sentient. It's conscious by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's a badass by itself. When you harmonize the melanin with the mitochondrial, now you're talking about really tapping into higher spiritual awareness. And the men need a female counterpart with a pure heart to raise his mitochondrial frequency just by being in the presence and feeling the energy of love. That's what they call pure, unadulterated mitochondrial output. It's called love.
So by being with with the feminine presence, a woman with a pure heart, that alone, you're saying, does something to your mitochondria that nothing else can do.
Yep. She gotta love you unconditional though. That means she not worried about some shit somebody told you was cheating. What in the hell is cheating? That's violating the set of rules that was already laid down and agreed upon by the parties playing the game. But reality is humans are pack animals, and we live in a hierarchy, the same as wolves, the same as gorillas, the same as schools of fish. We got a pack hierarchy. And the alpha males is the attack because that's the defenders. Those are considered the white blood cells of the body, while the women would be considered more of the red blood cells, the ones that brings the nutrients throughout the body. So as long as we focused on the divisive strategies of those who came to divide and conquer us and subjugate the divine masculine so that we can't facilitate the rise of the divine feminine, then we're going to always have problems. Well, principles and laws are not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Principles is those things that nature does without nobody of intellect infusing their ideology. When it comes to the arena of the human, we are in charge of changing the system when the systems become destructive to the nature of the planet. And this is where we at now. All of these systems around the planet are fraudulent, predicated upon something called nationhood. A nation is a company, a corporation. All nations are governed by uniform commercial code as the standard of law. That's going to be removed because it's only supposed to be for the seas. It wasn't supposed to be for the land. So on the land, you're going to go back to what we call in the Americas, the great law, where as you go back to admiralty is only the law of the flag on the high seas, which will no longer be functional on the land. If you put everything where it's supposed to go, the machine runs perfect. Yeah, one of the first things that, if you notice, there's been a lot of cattle farms and chicken farms that then burned down and killed thousands of cattle and thousands of birds. That's because all of this genetically modified food that doesn't have any nutritional value is going to be removed. This is going to have the negative side effect first of creating the food shortage. Okay. But it's really not a food shortage. It's a shortage of a human pesticide, basically. That's what you call a niche group. Some people was born to show us different capabilities of the human. And some of them are breatharians. Some of them take their energy straight from the sun. And some of them only drink water. Right? But they get their water from very key places, what they call it. It's called primordial water or first water. Then you have those who only eat fruits. Then you got some that only eat vegetables. Then you have your cannibals or your carnivores who only eat meat. And then you have the rest of us, the majority of us is a mixture of all of them. But in order to know about the power of the breath, you need breatharians, those who live by the breath, which is actually another word for spirit. Right? They know how to draw the nutrition into the cells through the mitochondrial using the power of the mind and the synchronization of the higher self with the ego stripped down to its least common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
So they all have to be seen. People do strange stuff with the body, contortionists, gymnasts, to show you your capabilities. Because a lot of us is monkey see, monkey do. If we don't ever see it, we won't ever try it.
Right, exactly.
Right. And then you have what we call adrenaline junkies. Anything that creates the sense of danger, fuels their fire for life, make them feel like they're alive. This is one of the reasons why we take the human form as higher evolved beings, is to experience something called emotions. Because higher spiritual beings don't got no emotions, but they don't do narcissistic bullshit either.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when they experience the emotion, a lot of the times we become what's known as the pauper gods, where we embrace poverty and suffering in order to feel the most misery, and because it's the exact opposite end of bliss spectrum.
So that would be similar to, so just like they got adrenaline junkies, we're emotion junkies because we want to experience that.
Yeah. Some of us are so driven on experiencing the emotion that we can't even get addicted to drugs because we're too addicted to the emotion.
Yeah, that's facts. Motherfuckers be high off being a victim, or for fame, or for, it could be anything. But just the experience, so niggas be getting high ride. Oh, they be getting high off these emotions.
Yeah, you can tell because the victim, the energy generated from being the victim is so strong that once you convince somebody they've been a victim, they'll fight for 1,000 years to try to right the wrong you done to them, even if it ain't true. The slave ships. Because one of the things about the Earth realm as a university is the emotions is the navigation system.
Uh-huh.
And the better you can read yours and others, the better you can navigate your life. But at the same time, it's like cocaine it was never created to be the type of drug it became by concentrating it from the coca leaf.
Mm-hmm.
It became that when they extracted the active ingredients from the leaf. It was no more than caffeine.
Mm.
But now it's caffeine on steroids.
Right.
When you time travel, you go back on a different timeline. You can't go back on the same timeline you on, or you'll disintegrate.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you get past your date of birth, if you're on the same timeline, you don't exist no more. Until you get to where you was here before, your consciousness can go to any prior incarnation you had.
Mm-hmm.
But to actually be able to interfere with historical events, you will end up creating another loop. You will basically be backflipping on your tail.
Right.
The dude go back in time to kill his grandfather before he was
right.
Because
that will kill you.
Right. But if you go back, you're gonna be on a different timeline, and you can kill him and still be there.
Mm.
You won't be on the same timeline. It will create a divergent.
Mm.
Process is called the soul retrieval process. It's a book called Soul Retrieval, and there's another one called Moving Through Parallel Dimensions. All of these things are consistent with merging. Okay, so when you're doing that, all you're doing is bringing all of your alternate reality selves into a primary timeline.
Right.
So when you decided when you was 12 years old that you was going to take up baseball instead of football, in one timeline you're a football player, but in the other timeline that you're living in, you're the baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
But now the opportunity comes for you to play football.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, how you can only perform at a high level if you go and unite with the self that became the football player.
Mm.
Right. This is all done in the mind. The mind is a bad mofo. The mind can do stuff that you have no idea. And the way we are taught is so we never explore the mind. That's why they tell us an idle mind is the devil's workshop.
Right.
But it ain't the devil, it's your double. It's your doppelganger. Your higher conscious self can go to all of your other selves and recover you from wherever you at to tap your skill set and bring it into a single timeline. That's called moving to a singularity. And it's something that mystics been teaching for thousands of years. Like we think the Earth's 6,000 years old. And that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard.
You said you don't like to put a time on Earth. Right?
No, but even using the Gregorian calendar, if you use 6,000 Gregorian calendar years, you're gonna see that it was bustling civilizations jumping off already.
Yeah.
If you use 6,000 Julian calendar years, you're gonna run into bustling civilizations at the time that, because all these are Christian concepts, and these Christian concepts is crowd control. It's herding the sheep.
Right.
That's all it's for. It don't have no intrinsic value for the sheep, but the shepherd can read it differently from the sheep.
Man, so this doppelganger, that's your higher self then?
Yeah. That's your double.
Your double.
That's your true self.
That's your true self.
Yeah. Right. Your ego self is your artificial constructed self. And you got that idea from all your teachers, your parents, your siblings, your cousins, your friends, all telling you how they feel about you or what type of person they think you are. All of that you believe becomes the building blocks of the ego. Right. And this is why, like, a lot of people don't understand Dianetics. The whole program, you don't need that. All you need is the original Dianetics book to understand how the mind works. Once you understand how it works, then you understand how to interrupt the patterns that keep you following the oppressive narrative that they got us sinking into. Like reparations, a lot of us that look like me and you don't even know that reparations is a distractive tool to keep the ones who was organic to the land from ever discovering they organic to the land and then surrendering that status in order to be compensated from being brought from somewhere that you ain't from. Right. So that's why if you go back to my earlier Facebook lectures, you'll hear me saying it all the time. And the only way you can lose your soul is to lose your mind. And you lose your mind by people giving you misinformation that you take as the holy gospel. Yeah. So all of those things come from different star systems. You ever heard of the Voynich manuscript?
Yeah, I did, but I don't know what that is. But I heard that name is familiar.
So the Voynich manuscript is an ancient manuscript that nobody can translate. But what it is an order catalog for the flora and fauna of the earth. And a lot of the stuff in there we didn't order. But like cannabis comes from the Canis star system. And is used to facilitate higher consciousness and to turn you into a human lie detector. Mushrooms, psilocybins, comes from a different star system with a group of beings that we call the Deros, which is prone to obesity. Think farmers with overalls, the fat, pot-belly, overweight. This is what they look like. The obesity gene. Remember when they discovered the obesity gene? The obesity gene is the Deros gene. Right. Then you have the cone heads, the Teros. Right. And all of these different beings, when they came, they brought with them the tools to teach higher consciousness that they use on their planet or in their star system. And they scattered them around the world. The coca plant is native to over here.
Okay.
The marijuana is native to over here, but the priests from Tibet end up taking it over there when Tahuti sent the temple priests from the pyramids around the world to spread knowledge. They found that the THC builds up something called an endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is your spirit body connection to your physical body. So you have endocannabinoid receptors on every major organ. Right? That's because every organ is responsible for a different secretion. And by balancing out the secretions, it alters the perception of the mind by feeding the brain certain chemicals in order for you to perceive on higher levels of consciousness. It was the best teaching tool on the planet. As you became more advanced, then you had your sweat lodge, psilocybins, you had your toads, then you had your Ibogaine. Ibogaine ceremonies with a good Babalao is probably the best hallucinogenic for higher perception of self than any other, but it's dangerous. But you won't be addicted to no drug once you go through the Ibogaine ceremony. You won't be psychologically or emotionally capable of being addicted to a drug once you've been exposed to the Ibogaine. And that's why they banned it in America. It's called African LSD too. But they banned it in America because there was no competent priest to administer the rites. Now you can get access to Ibogaine, but people using it for recreational purposes, not for that. One of the ironies about Ibogaine is a lot of people who went through the ceremony met the great mother who called herself Iwas, the spirit of the great world tree. And is made from the bark of a tree.
Wow.
Crowley was one of the pale faces that went into the Masonic lodges to put the secrets in the public. And that's why the Freemasons and all of the different secret societies hated him. I know what Crowley was doing. I don't have to think about it. I know what he was doing. I fuck with Crowley heavy. But the people that's been indoctrinated with the church would think if anybody acknowledges Crowley and his work is some kind of nefarious worshiper of dark forces, which nothing can be further from the truth. Crowley became a 33rd degree Freemason at an early age when he was like 20 or something. And once he got his 33rd degree, he said, now I'm gonna go out here and tell everybody what y'all doing. It's all documented. On that's called the left-hand path. On the right-hand path, his counterpart was known as Franz Bardon. And Franz Bardon, or AKA Fabato the Magician, taught the principles of hermetics from the perspective of the righteous or the right. Right. So when you study his work, when you get to evocational magic, and you start comparing it to Crowley, you can't tell the difference. But in the early works, the initiation of hermetics, you begin to see a difference in the work. But when you get to the higher levels of the study, you're like, it's the same thing. I'm not real versed in him. I'm more versed in Rudolf Steiner and Madame Blavatsky. But I'm not real familiar with his works. That can be further from the truth, because if you go back and read Crowley, Blavatsky's Isis Unveiled and Secret Doctrine, you're gonna see her talking about old man Africa. She's talking about Enki.
What she said?
Right. She's just giving you the rundown on who he was. And she talked about the 5 root races, which was part of the breeding program of the Anunnaki. It's all in her written works. and she's not on record of doing nothing racist.
Okay, that's what.
Same with Crowley. Crowley was in Europe. You gotta remember that. And a lot of the European ways we would perceive as racist from over here because the people that brought racism to us came from Europe. But what we don't know is the people that brought racism to us look like us. Right? The doctrine of white supremacy is what we call the protocols of Zion. That's why they vehemently deny that it's a actual work. They believe that it's a disinformation to the Jewish community. Those pale-skinned Jews ain't even the problem. It's the ones that look like us that believe they have the inherent right to rule over us because they feel like we are they pets. Goyim is what they call us in Hebrew, and it's akin to calling us cattle. So that's part of the Conjure War. You gotta remember, Greek was written by Egyptian priests who settled on the island of Crete. Latin was written by Etruscans who settled in what we call modern day Spain, all the way into Italy. They wrote Latin as a conjure language from the beginning. Well, we call it a scholarly language.
Yes.
So there's only two scholarly languages out of Europe, and that's Greek and Latin. The Greek was under the matriarchal rulership of the goddess Helen. And she became a man in Rome. That's called the beheading of a god. In Rome is where Latin is the scholarly language. The Roman construct took several hundred years to bring into fruition after Alexander's conquest of the Indus Valley, where he captured the scrolls of government, which they call them the caste scrolls, which tells them how to keep people subjugated. And then through Plato's Republic, they was able to implement this republic, which is law, ruled by law, into the arena of the people in order to control them so that you can subjugate them. So Latin is considered a dead language. I mean that it's a fixed language. That's why they still use it. And they can use it for ancient or modern spell work because it's a dead language. The same with Greek. But it's the authors of the language that makes the difference in the intentions of the people. Like when the Pharaoh sent his daughter to settle Greece, that he told the priest to write them a language in which they can harness their higher senses. Whereas when the Latins went in, when they wrote Latin, they was only seeking to have a rival language to Greek in the Conjure War. That was all that was. So most of us don't know. A lot of our problems is from people in Conjure Wars doing nefarious things. Like modern Americas ran off three primary conjures. One is called Babylonian blood magic. One is called Babylonian money magic. The other one is Babylonian sex magic, where they can keep the frequency and the vibration so low that they can get away with any kind of dirt as long as they can keep the narrative under control. That's all sorcery. The only language right now that I know that was created with the fifth dimensional matrix in mind is called Nuwapu.
Okay.
All of these other languages is based on third dimensional manifestations of the delay. Nuwapu was written by the Nuwabians, and it was written with fifth dimensional frequency in mind. You know, that's the only language that I know of. Some of the indigenous languages of the Americas, there are certain words of power that you can use when you know these languages. If you develop to a pure heart, that they will manifest almost instantaneous. You know, but a lot of this stuff is lost to warfare, killing off the record keepers, the griots, the ones who told the stories by the fire, the ones who told the story on the lakeside. Right. And normally the men would tell stories around the fire at night, and the women would tell the women's stories around the lake while they do laundry. Right. right? So those were the main ones they was trying to kill. They wanted to kill off the ones who could change the condition. And so this, when you look back at the American history, them the chiefs that they was murdering, right? And that was part of the Kandra War too, because they wanted us in total darkness, and they said that they'll never come out of this darkness once we kill off all of their teachers. And then they infiltrated us in every organization, and they don't look like nobody with no stringy hair and pale skin from Europe.
Yeah.
Because there was no pale faces infiltrating the Moorish Science Temple in 1928, 27, 26. There wasn't no pale faces infiltrating the UNIA. There was no pale faces infiltrating the Black Panther Party. There were no pale faces that, though they could have been, they didn't do it. The SCLC and Martin Luther King, the AME Church wasn't infiltrated by pale faces. So we so fixated because they told us, there go your enemy over there, but the one standing next to you is the one stabbing you in the back. They look like us, but they ain't us. That's a Kandra War. That's the George Washington challenge. The FBI was ran by J. Edgar Hoover for almost 60 years, and guess what he was? He was a mulatto, working for the same Negroes that killed Clarence 13X, Malcolm X, infiltrated the Nation of Islam. You know, can't no pale face get in there. Right? So that's all convenience, right? To be in denial of the ones that look like us doing the dirt, so we can blame it on people that don't look like us. The whole KKK was created by what we call Blackamoor Spaniards. The regalia comes from Spain.
Right.
Right. And they originally tried to tell us this story that the KKK originally wore pillowcases and burned holes out for their eyes. That's not true. When the Dutch, Portuguese, the French, and the English came over here, they wasn't pale faces. Right? They started using the pale faces to block institutions to keep us out of the institutions of learning, economics, education, entertainment, the workforce. They wanted us kept out of everything, but they can't stop us. Because we was supposed to be here the whole time and they wasn't. That's why you have your tokens that pop up out of nowhere. Right? They have us thinking that Albert Einstein created the atomic bomb. He didn't. If you look up Lloyd Quartermain, you will see that the Manhattan Project was at a standstill until they brought him and his team of Negro physicists in. Right? NASA used to have something called the Black Room. The irony of the Black Room is everything in it is white except for the people. Right? And they would give them the problems that the regular pale faces can't solve.
Right.
And they always got the problem solved. That's what the whole movie about those sisters down there was.
Hidden Figures.
Yeah, that's all what it's about. They didn't tell you the whole story. They told you part of the story in Hidden Figures. They had a whole room full of so-called Negroes that solved the problems that the European scientists were stuck on because they didn't have what we call holographic matrix memory.
What's that, Rod? That's a hell of a name. Holographic matrix memory. What's that, Rod?
So if you go back and study Tesla, Tesla was able to see in his mind's eye the whole breakdown of a creation from the parts to the completed project. He was able to assemble it all. Right? That's holographic memory. You can see all sides of the object and you can disassemble it. It's just like taking the car apart in your mind without actually touching the car. Now you know all of the components of the car.
But you just said the Europeans didn't have it, but then you said Tesla had it. What's the difference between Tesla and Einstein?
Tesla wasn't no European.
What was Tesla? Come on, I want to hear this.
He was a Venusian. He was from Venus. Oh, he was an extraterrestrial. But he came here to give aid and assistance to the Earthborn for a reason. Venus is the Earth's twin sister.
Venus.
Right? And Venus was a water world that was similar to Earth, but it was also annihilated in warfare. Now it's almost uninhabitable.
Was this that Great War you be talking about?
Yeah.
So that Great War fucked up a lot of shit, huh?
Yeah, a lot. It fucked up Mars. Mars was inhabitable too. That's what Total Recall is all about. When Mars was inhabitable.
Damn.
For the most part, it was the most destructive war that this solar system has ever seen.
Yeah.
That's what killed the planet Earth. The planet Earth went through a death cycle. We're coming out of the death cycle now. That's why the frequency was dead frequency. Now she's waking up. Dinosaurs was created by Enki for the Andromeda beings to hunt.
For the
in the peace treaty.
I ain't never heard that breakdown. Hold it. Dinosaurs were created by Enki for the Andromeda beings to hunt.
The Andromeda beings is the story of the predator.
Yes.
And when they first came to Earth, they preceded the Anunnaki.
The Andromeda beings.
Yeah. And then they was hunting the women of the Earth until they found out they was matriarchal, and then they stopped. Now, while they in a ceasefire and they negotiating, the Anunnaki come.
Yeah.
And Enki offered them dinosaurs for a period of time so they could have large game to hunt other than humans. Humans was way bigger back then, though, by the way.
Oh.
They did different stuff with them. They kept them, some of them they kept them for trophies, some of them they ate. But they was, you know, that's what they did for a pastime, is they were great hunters.
Right.
Yeah. So when the contract ended, they had to destroy the dinosaurs. It was part of a peace treaty. There's only one the oldest contract on Earth is the Earth Matriarchal Order contract. That's the oldest contract on Earth. Wasn't no men here when that contract was created between the Earth and the women. It was just women here.
Just women at this time.
And they was doing parthogenic births. It wasn't until Anunnaki came that they created a gender contract. The gender contract now is being tested at the close of the age, as they do every close of the age. Because the men have to prove themselves worthy to be here as guardians, protectors of the women. And if we fail, they can cancel the contract, and everything male on the planet is just going to drop dead.
Whew.
The men had to do something miraculous on the behalf of the matriarchs of the planet in order for us to be able to stay. Mm-hmm. It's all in the ancient record, but we don't like to talk about the ancient record because many people believe it's fantasy.
And what ancient record is this? What you're saying, this contract is in? What ancient record is this?
Well, a lot of it is in the Vedic texts in India.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it, modern archaeologists has been discovering a lot. It's a book called Forbidden Archaeology by Michael Cremo, mm-hmm. who goes into a lot of the ancient things that was here. Mm-hmm. Ain't none of this stuff we think we came up with plastic. That ain't new. Like oil, they call it crude. That's mm-hmm. a side effect of nefarious beings walking the planet. Gold is the side effect of those benevolent beings walking the planet. Mm. Right? It's a resonant frequency, and the earth responds to it, and it tells us what's on the planet by the minerals that it produces. Mm. Mm. So that's why they called certain people the golden race. Certain people was called like you got your indigos, and then you have your onyx generation, which is the protectors and defenders who carry the totems of black animals like the Black Panther, the Black Wolf. Mm-hmm. That's all native to over here. That don't got nothing to do with the other places around the world. when they call us black, they not talking about us. They're talking about our totem, right? And they said they would kill us. They would annihilate us. So black became synonymous with death.
But before that,
but before that, black was the great guardian, the onyx. And it was manifesting a black cougar, a black wolf, a black eagle, a black hawk. All of these are clan totems that told of the people who were different priesthoods, who were warrior priests set to defend our land. And then they came over here because their royal status in Europe was white.
Mm-hmm.
And for us over here, white just means karma cleared. But for them, it meant superiority.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the attackers took the color of white. Go pull you a chessboard out and read the rules.
Mm-hmm.
White attack, black defend.
Mm-hmm.
The great defenders.
Shit.
It's always something different because it's what you call variables that go into the interpretation, like what you was thinking about, what you was doing, where you came from, where you going. But generally, a snake is, it's called a knockback. But the garter snake or a small snake is a master in training, right? When he become a cobra, he becomes a master. When he becomes a dragon, he becomes a grandmaster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the leader of the KKK is called the Grand Dragon.
Grand Dragon.
You have to have a certain mastery of conjure in order to hold the position.
Right.
Half of them was melanated.
Mm-hmm.
Half of them was, look, there is no more what we would call pure white people on planet Earth.
Yeah, right. Bobby said that like 15 years ago. Yeah.
They don't exist no more.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, all you got to do is look at the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Janelle Monáe said best, the booty don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, what happened to all of those mulattoes that were supposed to have been freed from the plantations, which was actually POW camps?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd they go? They didn't go marry among us. A small handful of them did. The rest of them moved into what we call white society proper. They passed the brown paper bag test. They can get in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So where their children go? Right? So we so adamant of being racist because that was a very important tool of our conquest. Before Spaniards, Dutch, Portuguese, or any Europeans came over here to conquer us, we had all skin complexions of people. We had been having Irish in the Appalachian Mountains for I don't know how long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? The original Irish and Scots that fled, children of Scotia and Scotia, the sisters, they came over here for refuge. This is what America used to be. It used to be the refuge because we didn't have war over here.
Mm-hmm.
They try to paint the picture now that we was eating people and human sacrifice. All that's made up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And they wanted to make that narrative so they could say they was just as bad as us.
Right.
No, we don't eat babies. We don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's Babylonian blood magic that the dirty Moors brought from Europe over here.
Mm-hmm.
Then they brought something called dogma. That's why Albert Pike wrote Morals and Dogma, because the dogma is going to mislead everybody whose moral compass is confused.
Right.
If your moral compass is confused, you'll get caught in the dogma and follow a false narrative to your destruction.
Mm-hmm.
You won't never see it. But if your moral compass is intact, it'll start with one simple question. Why would God let this happen? You're going to get an answer. You might not like it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to get an answer. Your higher self, everybody in the world, 8.3 billion people can lie to you. But there's one motherfucker that can't never lie to you. You can always know you lying. Mm-hmm. So you can be in denial of what your higher self told you to your own detriment, or you can start paying attention when you get a hunch and go verify what you're seeing until your higher self can communicate clearly to you what it's trying to tell you.
Mm.
You got an internal language that only you know.
Facts.
And if you don't understand how to develop your understanding of your internal language, then you're going to always be relying on external forces to educate you as to who you are. Your ego development becomes solidified. And it turns off your higher consciousness because you don't want to hear that shit. You don't want to hear the self-accusing spirit say, if you shoot that nigga today, his brother going to kill you tomorrow. I don't want to hear that. I'm going to shoot this nigga. Right? Then you shoot him. You just barely grazing. And then his brother come kill you tomorrow. You knew it was going to happen when you pulled the trigger because you told yourself. All you doing is reading out loud your book of life to yourself. You just ain't listening to it. Because we all got a book of life we came in with at birth.
Right.
We all need to be starting by asking our mama, when you was pregnant with me, did you pray for anything? Did you ask God for anything? Because this is the table of contents to your book of life.
What your mama was praying for?
What she was praying for.
What about the father? Does his sperm impact your book of life? Like,
if your father spiritually evolved, you better ask him what he was praying for while your mama was gestating.
Shit.
Because if they working together as a cohesive unit, both of them's input becomes necessary for the total development of a balanced child.
Yes.
I'm fucking that bitch tonight. But your mama, all she thinking about is when the Lord gonna change this condition, right? Now you got a child that don't know which way to go. He confused at birth.
Right.
Because now he want to go chase some pussy, but at the same time, he want God to fix the problem. And God can't fix the problem if the vessel not ready. Right? So this is why they want to break up the family. Because if we all on the same page in the family unit, we indestructible. But if we all get in different books and different libraries around the world in one family, and we ain't communicating the information across the family line, we are going in different directions. That's called chaos.
Right.
You can use the chaos if you become aware of it, but as long as you're not aware of it, you can't use it.
Man.
Chaos magic say use whatever work. Right. So a lot of people get caught in the day-to-day humdrum of paying their bills. They so worried about paying bills that they can't kill this system.
Right. Yeah.
Never knowing that once they kill the system, they're not gonna have no bills. Right. And whatever we want to create and produce, we have the mental capability to do that. But we can't do it when all we want to do is cater to a slave owner called a president. Right? We don't look up the meaning of none of the words we be talking, so we have a whole conversation and don't know half of what the fuck we just said for real. Because half the words we use and we don't know the definition of them or the etymology. Right? So we using words we don't know the meaning of to try to express ourselves competently and coherently so everybody know what we're talking about. And then we get frustrated and angry when people tell us we don't sound, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? But we got to realize it's different people at different levels. The right people gonna know what you're talking about. Right? And all of that ties into self-awareness, self-development.
Indeed. Oh.
It's a story of Lord Krishna talking to a guy named Arjuna. Arjuna is asking questions about this war that he's watching take place. That's what that's an excerpt from the Mahabharata, which is a much bigger text. They got more stuff in it. But the Vamana Sutras got a subtext called the Vamana's Wars. And that's talking about the cataclysm that took place in the Great War. Also, Malachi wrote about it in the Holy Tablets. He didn't go into detail with it, but he touched on it.
What he said?
Basically, pretty much what I said. But he didn't go into real depth and detail in there about the Brahmanis wars. But he tell you that these people that they call Hindus came from a planet called Nirvana, right? And to fight a war, and the war was being fought in the Earth realm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but he talk about it. It's in the story of the holy drama is part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's part of the destruction of reality after the fall of the Great Father. And now it's time for the son, Heru, which is, Heru is a title meaning heir to the throne of Osiris. When Heru becomes a man and he was able to capture what's called the Ujet and the Uraeus, now he can see with clear vision. And he becomes a manifestation of Osir again. And then the story repeats.
Mm-hmm.
He got a brother who slayed him, knocked his eye out, cut him up into 13 pieces. Why did they say 13 pieces? When the grand man is the 12 signs of the zodiac, right?
Mm-hmm.
But 13 is Big Mama seat, dead center of the zodiac, right? And when there's an heir to the great mother seat, she carries the number 8. If she's balanced, because the 8 is a 6 laying on top of a 9, or a 9 laying on top of a 6. 6 and 9 mean balance above and below. It's a mirror reflection, right? So it's all high science, right? But it's broke down into fundamental concepts that you can grasp. And once you understand it, then it makes sense. Another place where they talk about the Great War, it's a remote viewing place called the Farsight Institute. And some of the women who was channeling or using remote viewing was able to remote view the war. And they got a YouTube channel too, Farsight Institute. Yeah. It's the Farsight Institute, like in being able to look far away. Farsight. And they got some stuff in there that a lot of people was like, it can't be verified, but it can be verified. You know, remote viewing is a good study in and of itself, because now you understanding the key principle of how the mind works beyond the physical body. And your presence can pop up anywhere using remote viewing. That's also part of soul retrieval, because remote viewing is the same thing you using when you reviewing yourself in another timeline with a different set of developed skills.
Billy Carson be talking about that a lot, the remote viewing.
So look, the Andromeda beings look like the wraith off deep space, but their story is told to us as the predator. When you see the predator versus alien and annihilate them, help the predator to defeat the alien, that was telling us the story of when the women of the earth, when the Andromeda beings discovered we was matriarchal and gave us our respect, gave the human women their respect, right? And then because they was in communication with other species, they started inviting certain high-ranked women to go on space exploration trips to meet new people. And everywhere the Earth women went, they automatically became most loved and most respected in short order. And they became ambassadors. So a lot of what we know as the Galactic Council is women that used to live on Earth thousands of years ago.
Why the women on Earth became the most respected and most admired when they traveled?
Because they Oshun nature. They knew how to make some of the most hardened individuals experienced in love energy with their presence. And when it comes in the room, it's like now, the right female walk into the room, I don't care if it's 5,000 people in there, all heads turn. Right? That's that energy. And they stifling it by keeping the women and the men in conflict. And that's why I did the public service announcement for the Goddess Glow Up, because I already know the more women that the earth heals, the faster the earth heals. And the more we able to get from under the stupor that we in, and we can start thinking again. So a lot of people we think conscious. Some damn fools with education and a degree.
No, indeed.
You know?
Man.
And specifically to poke the bear, I'm gonna point out an example of what I'm talking about. Love that dude to death, but he keep talking about we Africans. And then he said he had descendants of Frederick Douglass. He must don't know nothing about Frederick Douglass, because Frederick said he was native over here. He was what they call a black Indian. So all of a sudden he gonna forego the ancestry claim in order to embrace his African self. Take his unapologetically African ass to Africa and watch how he get treated. The only place he gonna be welcomed is Liberia, to that degree that he's talking. Africans don't call themselves African. Think about that for Africans don't refer to themselves as Africans. They either gonna give you their tribal name or the name of the country they come from. They not gonna say they African unless they was raised over here. Africans don't claim Africa. Africa was created under Berlin Conference. When they divided it up, it comes from the Arabic word ifrak, which means to divide up. And that's what they did in the Berlin Conference. Divided up the motherland, which is actually the fatherland. And this is actually the land of the sun Tahuti, and Eurasia is the motherland. That's the land of Inanna or Isis. But since they know everything, I ain't the one to talk, so you ain't heard it from me.
Indeed, wow.
The deep state around the world have private militaries. They already programmed to what to do. They just waiting on the event to activate. That's why they got them all over the land now, because when they come out, when the deep state come out in their last chaotic effort to throw the people in disarray, they coming for the kids. They trying to catch kids out at night and snatch them off the street. So, like, people don't want to, they're like, man, I ain't following no military curfew. Well, let your kids go out there. They're going to come up MIA. Right? They not paying attention to none of this stuff. They did a pilot program in Ohio where they snatched up like 30 kids in 1 week.
Damn.
And then we ain't paying no attention. We don't give a fuck. As long as I can pay my bills, fuck them kids. We ain't saying that. We doing that. It's a difference. Right? Because just because we not saying it, doing it is worse.
Right.
It's like somebody tell you they love you all the time, but they always lumping your face up, got you looking disfigured. They saying one thing, but they showing you something else.
Right.
Or it's like the person that don't never tell you they love you, but they always there when you need them. They always there for you. They always got your back no matter what. Which one do you want on your team?
Exactly.
You know, so we watching all this stuff go on. They 1,800 or so kids came up missing from crossing the border as if they don't know where they went. They all got GPS trackers on them. People that took them didn't know that. Every time they get to the point where they think they got all of the traffickers and they bring on a rush of children across the border, some more come up missing. But the military got trackers on the ones coming up missing so they can find where the rest of them at. Now they at the part where they boots on the ground. They boots on the ground because these people is trying to get a reserve surplus of adrenochrome so they can continue to fight. By cutting off the children, you cutting off their drugs.
Some crazy shit, right?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff going on that we ain't looking at. And I'm at the point now because people starting to believe I'm an entertainer. I'm not here to entertain nobody. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not part of the conscious community. Them niggas is the most in the way ass niggas we got right now, the so-called conscious community. These diet woke ass niggas. Right? They see everything but what they need to see. And because they taking me for an entertainer, I can't do this. I can't be no entertainer. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to entertain nobody. I'm here to educate and to get information that you can use to get you to the next level. But now we didn't reach the point where they ain't taking me serious no more. Right? They starting to think I'm here for the hee hee ha ha. Right? And then they keep forgetting that I was told we not gang banging. But my OG told me, no, we brain banging. So I come out and I teach and I try to ignore the riffraff. But nigga, I want to smoke. I want to go out there in the street and that nigga that be barking. That's my blood. That's how I roll. But I'm under instructions that Farrakhan said, make it plain enough for a baby to understand. Okay, I'm doing that. If a baby can't understand this shit, he retarded. Then Larry said, don't go out there with that gang banging, brain banging. Bring the books, bring the receipts. Angel Bay said, tell them the truth about this nationality shit. They got this shit all fucked up. Nationality is the order of the day. You don't understand that to be a national, you first got to be a citizen of a nation. And soon as you become a citizen, you have to assume the position of a straw man. And as soon as you assume the position of a straw man, you are a legal fiction. You don't got no more rights. So they can shoot your ass down in the street and don't have no consequences. Because you already dead with your black ass. Right? But they want to push the agenda because they didn't even pay attention to Noble Drew Ali when he said, I can count the number of Moors going to make it on one hand and have fingers left over. So it's going to be way less than 5.
God damn.
Right? It's going to be less than 5 Moors left. Why would he say that? He started a civics organization. Who turned it into a religious organization? Somebody got to answer them questions. Why did they disregard what he was doing, teaching civics, to start teaching some religious dogma? Noble Drew Ali did what he did. He laid his hand down. Don't nobody know what he did but a few. Marcus Garvey laid his hand down. Everybody think Marcus Garvey was, everybody go back to Africa. Nigga, you got to be stupid. That's not what he taught. Right? Because if you study Pan-Africanism and then you go talk to African scholars, they're going to tell you the same thing they told me. Y'all not Africans. Y'all was already over there before Columbus ever sailed, before he was even born. Y'all was over there in bustling civilizations. Right? So Lewis and Clark declared that we didn't have any royalty on the land because we left our castles to fight the Gullah Wars. And then they backdoored us. But we got castles all over this motherfucker. They turned them into prisons, state buildings, and mental institutions. Right? So as long as they in that mindset, hey, I can't help them no more. I did my due diligence. I got hundreds of hours of information that they need to be reviewing now. That's why I'm done talking. You know, that's when they came up with the term pale face speak with forked tongue. Most of us don't know what it means, but we think we do.
That come from the alcohol?
From the alcohol exposing the intentions of the people that sent them.
Right.
Right. And when they sober, they know to not tell them that somebody that looked like you sent me over here to talk to you.
Yeah.
But once they full of that alcohol, they be told the whole story. Yeah, man, they had me in the Masonic Lodge and they told me because of my blonde hair and blue eyes that you would trust me.
Damn.
So I came over here. Now they sloppy drunk while they telling it.
Yeah, yeah.
When they sober up, they don't even remember telling it, and we ain't gonna tell them they told us.
Right. Damn.
Oh, that's just in the culture. That's why Drink Champs is as big as it is. That's why it's so popular.
So successful,
it's part of our culture,
Uh-huh.
right? And Nori is native to the land. He is an engine.
You can see him. You can look at him, and
yeah. I mean, I know from the culture. I read the culture. The culture tell me who belong here and who don't. You know, so I done been all over the land talking to people from different tribes, and they all understand what's going on to a different level than the average Joe. The average Joe is retarded, but it was intentionally done like that. Right? So that's what the whole blackface was. We thought it was some racist. No. The minstrel shows was to tell you who was behind the dirt when they dressed up, when they were started by some melanated people. Then it was hijacked by the pale people that painted their face black. Why they do that? Thick face, what's it called? White skin, black face, or black skin, white face by Frantz Fanon.
Frantz Fanon,
yeah. He telling you in there. Up and happy to read what's going on. Right? We don't pay attention. Even them apologetically Africans don't even pay attention to what the Africans is telling us because they want to follow the dogmatic narrative of a slave ship that never existed. Right? They found 5,000-year-old Egyptian ships. They found 2,500-year-old Asian ships, but they found the 200-year-old slave ship. Then none of them is never going to think to do an overlay with Notre Dame University where the plot was hatched. The cathedral is the slave ship. That slave ship they keep giving us where everybody packed like sardines. Go do a layover with Notre Dame University.